Thank you very much, Marco. Give me just 1 second and let me share my screen. Can you let me know whether or not you can see that?
Yes, we can
Thank you
see
for the
it.
thumbs up. Then let's get started. The question today is, should you use slides? Now, as Matt hyped me up over there, it's very much related to what Matt is saying, but with a practical lens towards how we use slides in our presentations. And I'm sure that you all agree that slides are a staple in business presentations. However, what I want to talk to you about is the fact that we often see them used incorrectly. And during this session today, I'm going to provide you with 3 simple questions to ask yourselves next time that you're preparing a presentation which uses slides to make sure that you are going to use slides in the correct manner. The first item, when you're giving a presentation, when you're in a room, in a meeting with a presentation which uses slides, is yourself. And the question that you should be asking yourself, question 1, is, do my slides make me redundant? Now, what does that mean? I'm sure you've been to a lecture or a presentation where you had someone who spent the whole hour just reading through slides. And when that happens, what I always think is, if only the speaker had given me the slides and I'd read them myself, I probably could have read them in half the time and still understood the same content. The reason why we do this is because when we create slides, we use, as Matt was saying, the perceptual position where we're thinking about ourselves. We're thinking about, I don't want to forget what I want to say. And therefore, I'm going to put that content in the slide so that I can make sure that I've said all the things I want to say. But when you do that, you are making yourself redundant. So what should you be focusing on instead? These people. The question you should be asking yourself, the second question, is who is my audience and how do they process information? So a good rule of thumb when creating slides is to have slides which are an image and one memorable point. This sort of format of slides is a format which is accessible to anyone, no matter who your audience are. And it's a way which is common for everyone to process information. However, it's not the only way to present information using slides. So for example, if you know that, like we have today, the audience is an ICT audience, they're familiar with flowcharts. So something like this could work as well. Let me describe my previous point in a different way. Step 1, show someone your slides. Step 2, can they understand them without you explaining what you're going to say? Step 3, if they cannot understand the slides without you explaining them, then excellent. Your slides has the right amount of information in it and you're not making yourself redundant. However, if they can understand them without you explaining them, you have a choice. Your first choice is to have the meeting, but reduce the text in your slides. And the second choice is to cancel the meeting and send an email instead. Now, after presenting a flowchart like that, I'd expect that I would spend some time actually explaining what the flow is. So this would be a precursor where I'm explaining the flow, and then we can talk about the technical aspects of the flow and the pros and cons. But you see that when I have a text-heavy slide like that, even though it's directed to technical people who understand it, I'm presenting it in a way where text is appearing gradually and people cannot read ahead and try and figure out what I'm going to say before I said it. So I'm trying as much as possible to reduce the fact that I am redundant, whilst at the same time getting information in a way where I know that the audience is familiar and can process the information. And the third question to ask yourself is, do my slides help the audience visualize and follow my speech? Let's talk first about visualization. You've probably heard the term, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And this is what I'm talking about with visualizing. There are some things which are just better as pictures than if you had to describe them by speaking about them. So for example, if you have a new product, you want to show some mock-ups or a demo. If you're talking to a technical audience, you can show graphs because you know that they're familiar with them. So over here, we can all look at this and see that at 2050-ish, something has really gone wrong with the HTTP latency. And I don't need to explain that verbally for you to understand that. Or for example, a world map. This map is a heat map of the countries where internet usage is used more or less. Showing this map is much more effective than me reciting all the countries in the world and giving you percentages. It's visual and you can understand it. The second part of helping your audience with slides is focus. When you give a speech, which is upwards of the 15-minute mark, it's just human nature that people will lose focus. And it's very common that you'll be giving speeches which are around the 1 hour mark. Now, there are many ways to engage an audience, such as by asking questions and getting participation, but it's not always possible, especially with the online format and especially when you're speaking to super large audiences. So in that case, slides can be used to help your audience focus on what you're saying. And if they get lost, and they will, and it has nothing to do with your speaking and just how the human brain works, they'll get lost and then they'll look back at the slides and figure out what you were talking about and get back to what you were saying. So for example, if I were to talk about our tech stack, I might have slides which have something about JavaScript written, and then I'll explain how we use JavaScript in our company. And then I'll talk about how we use Java in our company. And then I'll explain Docker. And then I'll explain MySQL. Now, I do want to say that I really try to avoid text slides like this. Sometimes they are unavoidable, but I truly believe that 90% of the time you can get a slide which is full of images like this, full of text like this, and convert it to, spoils myself there, images. And that way it's much more visual, much more easy to follow, and much more engaging to your audience. So to recap, next time you're in a meeting and giving a presentation using slides, these are the 3 questions that you have to ask yourself. Number 1, do my slides make me redundant? Number 2, who is my audience and how do they process information? And number 3, do my slides help the audience visualize and follow my speech? Thank you, and on to you, Marco.